world loves the possibilities of the young. All the brutal realities go unsung. The young lions, they always seem to have their day. Now don't they? Don't they? While the world shoves aside the particular hipsters who play, who've paid their dues and lived a little bit long away. But watching you tonight, I know the world is wrong. So wrong. 'Cause you're playing stronger, the longer in the tooth, the notes you conveying are the stone cold honest truth. You're playing better than in your well-regarded youth. You're a late bloomin' jazz man, late bloomin' jazz man. And one thing's very clear, your finest flowers finally here. Sometimes the world's fooled by the innocence of a child. Their loud, unschooled dissonance drives them wild. The prodigies come and go. Now, don't they? Don't they? So when the world sees a player with a lifetime of experience, why does it turn away, look away, when it's clear that they've got so much left to say? You're playing sweeter, and you've always had the touch. But now you're the master, not too little, not too much. Picking one note that can say just what you feel. You're a late bloomin' jazz man, great bloomin' jazz man. And one thing's very clear, your finest flowers finally here. Ba-do-ba-do-do-do-do. But now you're the master, not too little, not too much. Picking one note that can say just what you feel. You're a late bloomin' jazz man, great bloomin' jazz man. And one thing's very clear, your finest flower is finally here. Your finest flower, your finest flower is finally here.
Ladies and gentlemen, multi-platinum lyricist, instructor extraordinaire, your friend and mine, please help me welcome the magnificent Mark Winkler.
Thank you. Thanks.
We're here to celebrate a lot of things. Chief among them is the craft of songwriting, because you're such a crafts person at this art, and we're here to celebrate this brand new record of yours, Late Bloomin' Jazzman. And there's so many things that we could say about you and your career, but I just want to hit three quick things, because one of the things you guys who have taken Mark's fantastic classes know is that he's all about threes and top tens and making things concise and essential. So of all the many things I could tell you, I want to tell you three things that are happening about this brand new record right now that are really, really exciting. Number one, on this brand new record, it's one of the most added albums on the jazz charts. It's number two, it's number one on Amazon Hottest New Releases for Jazz Vocals, and it has recently received a coveted 4-star review in Downbeat magazine, Late Bloomin Jazzman. First of all, congratulations on the record and its initial reception and everything, Mark.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
And so I want to start our conversation tonight with just asking you kind of a bigger question to lead us into this path to talk about songs and record making. And first, I'd love to know in general how you like to approach record making, and then specifically how you approached the making of this record.
Okay. Well, you know, I've been making records for 40 years. June of 2022. I've had 20 records in 40 years. So I've been making records for a long time. I was making vinyl records before they were cool. So my first 3 records were vinyl. And I've learned a lot. So before I go into making a record, I have things in mind. First of all, I want to have the best songs I can have on the record. And that means that people who take my class know I have gatekeepers in my life. People who tell me, I run my songs past them, and they tell me, yeah, that's a great song, or that's not such a good song. And I also sing my songs live, and then I get the audience reaction to the songs. So I want to have the best songs, but also I know what, for maybe the last 10, 12 years, I've been in pretty well in the jazz world, in the jazz charts, in jazz radio. And so I know what sort of jazz radio expects of me. I know I have to have some swinging tunes on the record. And I love that. I love swinging songs. So that's no problem. But also some jazz stations, and that's who I'm appealing to. This is my genre. As a performer, I have a genre. If you're a songwriter, you can write many different kinds of genres. You know, you can be pop, you can be country western, you can be dance, you can be folk, you can be alternative folk. But as a performer, you've got to fit a category, and that's just the way it is. So I know that certain jazz stations will not play my original songs, no matter how good they are. So I always have to put about 4 cover songs that have been, you know, that are standards, chestnuts on the record. And then I arrange them in my own fashion. So then I have to know that my album needs variety. I can't just do mid-tempo swing tunes. I can't do just ballads. I can't do, you know, I have to mix it up. I have to do some bossa novas, some blues, some swing tunes, a couple of ballads. So those are all in my mind. And then I work with a wonderful producer for the last 8 records. And she's my #1 gatekeeper. And I run things past her. And she's really good. So that's what I do preparing for a new record.
When you're talking about the gatekeeping process and how you're able to trust her to
and the other gatekeepers I've picked.
The other gatekeepers, exactly. What kinds of things? What will that mean? Pushing you on the material, thinking about arrangement, like what kinds of things?
Both things. On this record, we're going to go into it a little bit. You know, we as songwriters always love our newest song the best. I've never known that to fail. And sometimes our newest song isn't the best song we've written. And I need someone to tell me that. And it's not pretty, you know, but you need those people. I just had a student of mine, he just put together an album, and the album could be wonderful, but there's songs on it that just aren't that good. And he asked me what I thought. So I said, you know, you need to feature these songs and you need to get some better songs. And he didn't want to hear it. So what I try to do, and it's the hardest thing in the world, is I try to keep my mind open and listen to what the people that I trust are telling me. That's really hard because sometimes, a lot of times, they're right and I'm wrong.
Well, I think it'd be really fascinating to start talking song by song in
Sure.
this collection of songs. And since we just heard the title track, Late Bloomin' Jazzman, which is a super clever and wonderful title for the song and the album,
Thank you.
tell us a little bit more about that, where it's coming from, and also the genesis of the song itself.
Sure. Well, I want to say that I'm a title freak, and people who've taken my class know that my number one tip is come up with a great title. And the reason you come up with a great title is because you need to write your song to that title. So if I come up with a really great title like Late Bloomin' Jazzman, well, I'm writing about that late bloomin' jazzman. And I have to, it's the story that I'm creating around that. So a title gives you everything if it's a good title. And that one did. So the genesis of this song is I was at a jazz radio convention a couple of years back. And we went out at night and we were listening to this great, and I won't mention his name, guitarist. And he was a veteran guitarist. He'd been around the block a few times. And I was with two radio people sitting with me, and I was just blown away by him. I thought he was like fantastic. And they weren't talking about him. They were talking about the new 20-something person that was on the scene. And I, being, having a big mouth, I said to them, well, what about this guy? He's great. And they said, oh yeah, we love him. We love him. But wow, that new guy, he's so new. I've never heard. He's only 22 years old. And that tipped me off. I was angry. Mark Winkler gets angry. And I wrote the song about it.
That's great. And so when you wrote the song, like for you, does that mean there's a pen in your hand and paper, or are you talking into a voice memo, or are you singing it? Talk about how that song, and then if you want to talk further about your...
Now, I have a pretty similar method. If I'm writing the lyric first, I write it on a legal pad with a number 2 pencil or pen. Sometimes I do a pen. And then as I write it and I keep rewriting it, then I'll switch it over to Word on my computer.
Do you ever find yourself like speaking or singing the lyric into a voice memo, or are you waiting until you're in the company of a composer if you're not composing the melody yourself?
Well, I'm always speaking my lyrics, if not singing them, because I believe lyrics need to be conversational. That's one of my big things. And so you're not going to know if it's conversational unless you speak it. So I'm always talking them to my imaginary friend, and on this particular song, I wrote it with a wonderful writer named Eli Brueggemann. And he was my student like 15 years ago, really young man, great piano player. And he became the music director of Saturday Night Live. So that's where he's at. So we're still writing songs together. And so what I did is I talked to him, I read him the lyric, and he said to me, can you just read me the lyric and put it on voice memo and give it to me? So I did that. And then, and with my dog Stella in the back barking. And so I basically spoke the song to him. And then he spent about a week and then gave me back this rough demo that he'd done. So why don't we just play that? A little of it. So this is what I got back from him. And if you're hip enough, you'll notice that Stella is barking in time.
All of the brutal reality is going some. The young lions, they always seem to have the day. Now don't they? Don't they? While the world shoves aside the particular hipsters who play, who pay the dues and live a little bit longer way. Yeah. But watching you tonight, I know the world is wrong.
Okay.
You're playing stronger, the longer in the tooth, and what you're conveying. all the stone cold honest truth. You're playing better than in your well-regarded youth. You're a late blooming jazz man, late blooming jazz man, and one thing's very clear: your finest flower.
Here's Stella working.
Got great time.
Sometimes the world's fooled by the innocence of a child. Their loud, unschooled dissonance drives it wild. The prodigies come and go. Now,
I got so excited when he
don't they?
when he sent this to me. I didn't realize he was just going to take my rap and musicalize it and just put the arrangement behind me. And I love it. And I actually made the chorus. I put a melody to it a little bit. It was sort of obvious.
But in other words, had he not sent that back to you that way, you might have not have thought of the verses as a spoken word piece like that.
I didn't think of the verses as spoken word.
That's wonderful, because it's so hipster in those ways, and I feel like you're able to sort of acknowledge the kind of time travel as you're honoring this venerable jazz man on the stage. I think that's a great choice.
Thank you. Well, Eli is just a very, very talented musician, and we really sort of aped his arrangement. And he does these hits. Every once in a while I go, sometimes the world is full of the innocence of a child. Boom. So I had the hardest time getting drummers. I notated it on the charts, but for them to do these big hits, but we did it. We did it on the record, and we basically had to ape his chart. I almost went to New York and I almost recorded it with his cats, but my guys, Jameson Trotter and Christian Human, who plays with Jacob Collier, he's on my album, and Grant Geisman on guitar, and Brian Schwartz, who's on trumpet, who plays with the Monkestra, Grammy-winning orchestra. They were so fantastic, they got it.
Yeah, and we started the conversation today watching that studio video, and we see everybody's texture, but also there's just a great sense of space. It's like a marvelous conversation that's going on, and
yeah,
it really serves your wonderful vocal too.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
The thing that's so neat about the song is the musicians in jazz do speak to each other, and there's many moments in that song when they're commenting upon my lyric, are commenting upon what the last guy just did. It's very nuanced, actually. It was like our second or third take. It was amazing.
That's really special. So, and by the way, if anybody ends up having a question about the craft, if you want to understand like how did Mark get somewhere, that sort of thing, definitely.
Can I just mention that that's verse chorus?
Yeah.
So the verses are spoken and the chorus is sung. And just like you should in a song, my last line is the title of the song. So I'm pretty much even though it sounds sort of wild and I'm rapping and everything, the form is very tight and conventional.
And I was saying to you before, one of the things that I really love about this song is that yes, the title gets the last word, but it's not the last word in.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Thank you, Rob. The last word is what I call the last line in the chorus, a stinger, or the payoff line.
Yeah.
So I have a payoff line, which is your finest flower is finally here. Yeah. You're a great blooming jazz man. But one thing's very clear, your finest flower is finally here. Yeah. So it's got a payoff or stinger line.
Yeah, and while I know we saw the video, but if I could just needle drop us in the end of the studio recording for just a second, and like.
I can say just what you feel. You're a late blooming jazz man, great blooming jazz man, and one thing's very clear: your finest flower is finally here. Your finest flower. Your finest flower is finally here.
was really powerful. And it's just that's a great vocal moment. And so I love that you use the title to set up this more emotional line. You know, the title's so clever and wonderful,
Yeah.
but that image is really potent, and then your vocal and vocal melody really serve it. So I thought that was just a great little piece of craft that you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This whole album is about, we didn't talk about the theme of the album, and I've made many albums before, and a lot of them do have themes. I've made albums about the songs of Bobby Troop, the songs of Laura Nyro, two fantastic songwriters, the songs of New York clubs during the 50s. This album is about, I did an album when my husband died about getting through that with music and friends. It was called The Company I Keep. And this album, as I got through it, I realized it was about getting older and the things you care about and you are concerned with, which is, I'm not the youngest flower in the garden, so why not?
It's really powerful and effective that way.
Thank you.
Maybe would you like to move on to another song?
Yeah, let's move on.
I was thinking about When All the Lights in the Song Worked.
Sure.
What would you tell us about that, and maybe you talk about it a bit, and I can play some of it.
Sure. This song is an older song of mine. This actually was recorded once before by me on an album of mine called Tales from Hollywood. And I've loved this song. And actually, when I had a Broadway musical that played 10 years ago off Broadway, and it was in that musical too. And I've always thought it was one of my best songs. And other people have recorded it. A wonderful lady named Lauren White, who I produced, recorded it. And another guy recorded it. And I always wanted to revisit it because I recorded it over 20 years ago. So Jameson Trotter, once again, who did the arrangement of the last tune, arranged this. And this song is, I like to write songs that contain worlds. So like the Beatles song, Yellow Submarine, is a nautical song. It's about octopuses and octopi and submarines and captains and coral fish. It contains a whole world. So this is the world of film noir, which is movies that were made basically in the 40s and 50s with very interesting chiaroscuro lighting. And I always say the streets were wet, the women were bad, but beautiful, and the coffee was black. And the hero's always sort of disenchanted. And I love those movies. So I basically wrote this song as a film, as the title song of a film noir that never got made.
That's fantastic. Why don't I play some of it, and you can stop us if you want, or we can.
I love this. Let's play the whole thing because I think the arrangement and the playing is so fantastic. I say so myself. I really like this one.
When All the Lights in the Sign Worked.
Yeah. This is sort of inspired by Charles Bukowski, who was a poet, LA poet.
It's a rainy night on Western. Cars are driving much too fast. Neon coloring the raindrops, running down the windshield glass. And the buildings all have fire escapes, but no one's escaping from here. Boarded up storefronts and the haunts of another year. Deco board down on its luck. I keep wondering what it must have been like when all the lights in the sign worked on a long gone Hollywood night. When all the lights in the sign worked on a long gone Hollywood night. The radio is playing jazz, kitten in a mellow mood. You keep flipping the stations one by one, till you're back to stand for good. And I feel you close beside me, smelling of Shalimar, shadows wrapping you in mystery, like an actress in an old film noir.
You may have noticed that the lyric is a little different on the lyric sheet, and that's because the lyric sheet is for the female version of the tune. So it has a slightly, I changed the lyric for the female. This is Brian Schwartz on trumpet. Now Bob Shepard on sax.
And you got those sleepy eyes, baby, I could never resist. You push back your long red hair in a prelude to a kiss. The street lamps in the rain are shimmering, reminds me what the world was like when all the lights in the sign worked on a long gone Hollywood night. There were blue lights, there were red lights too. When all the lights, when all the lights, all the lights in the sign worked. All the lights in the sign worked.
Oh, all right.
Yay.
Thank you.
So gorgeous.
Moody, huh?
It really, really is. Hey, by the way, I want to ask, so Barbara Brighton produced,
Yes.
who mixed?
A wonderful guy who also engineered it, Tally Sherwood, Tritone Studios in Glendale.
Wonderful. You know, a lot of times in a jazz record and on some of the other songs, there's a real effort at the kind of veritas, like it's everybody in the room, and it is that. But there's lots of really subtle moves that add to the film noir vibe. He's panning the reverb tails, some of the horn lines, and it just gives it this, you know, as if somebody like wandered off down the dark, wet alley. You know, it gives a dimension and a little mystery. And it's very subtle. It doesn't call attention to itself, but it's really, really artful.
Cool. You know, yeah, that's a really good point. The ethos in jazz is to basically record your album like you walk into a club and you hear a really good recorded and performance, but with the natural sound of a club. Mm-hmm. But Tally and I have talked about this, and sometimes we want it to be more of a record. You know, that's one of the differences between pop music and jazz is that jazz goes for the live thing and pop is a produced sound. You know, it doesn't sound like you'd walk into a concert and hear a concert you'd go into, but it's not that live performance thing. So we try to have our cake and eat it too with this song.
I think that's fantastic. There's so many craft things going on in this one. Could I put the lyric up again?
Sure.
You could just point some out. Do you mind?
No.
That'd be great.
So it's a AABA, which it's the older song form, which a lot of jazz songs are in. And it's also a laundry list song, which is a list of things that sort of tell you what the song is about. So a rainy night, cars driving, the raindrops falling down, buildings, boarded up storefronts. So it's called a laundry list song, which I love. And I'd write laundry list songs for every song if I had my way, but I don't. They're great. It's a songwriter's best friend. It also has something I call lots of furniture, which is specific nouns and verbs. Rainy night, fire escapes, boarded up storefronts, the lady is smelling of Shalimar, Deco Bar, down on its luck, Deco Bar down, that's an alliteration. So what else do I have? Street lamps in the rain. So it's a visual song, you see it. Sleepy eyes.
And it sets us up because your title is such a evocative visual title. So it's perfect that you put us in the world with all these artifacts, so that our imagination is calling back to this time that you're describing.
Yeah, I actually wrote this song after reading an article in the LA Times about the signs on top of the old LA apartment buildings in the Wilshire corridor, I believe. And I there's all these old apartment buildings, and they have these beautiful old signs above them. I just passed by Rempaw, or is it Vine? The Ravenswood. It's like right on Santa Monica Boulevard in Rempaw. Anyway, they've got beautiful signs in neon.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like the tourist who keeps wanting to linger and loiter, but I want to make sure we don't miss out on any of the songs we want to talk about today.
Yeah, let's move on.
Could we talk about maybe In Another Way? Does that sound good?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, go on.
no, you tell me about it.
Well, In Another Way probably means more than any other song on the record to me. Well, there's one other that means a lot to me. So this one has an interesting story. So on Facebook, about a year ago, there was a story of Kafka, the famous Russian novelist, and the little Dolly. And have you ever heard of that story, Rob? Has anybody heard about this story?
Yeah, but I haven't heard you tell it in the context.
Oh, so you have heard? Okay, I had never heard it before then. So anyway, he was a guy who never married. He had no children. He walked to the park in Berlin one day and met a little girl who was crying because she had lost her doll. And she and Kafka searched for the doll unsuccessfully. And he consoled the girl by bringing her letters, supposedly written by the doll, saying, I'm traveling around the world, I'm having a great time, don't worry about me. Eventually, Kafka brought her a different doll, passing it off as the original one. Kafka died, and the little girl put the doll away. And years later, she brought it out, and she was, I guess, handling it, and she found a note in the doll. And the note said, everything you love will probably be lost, but in the end, love will return in another way. So when I heard this, I immediately thought of my husband who passed away 6 years ago, Richard Del Belso. And I wanted to write a song that talks about love, and his love, is not with us on this plane. And I have found a new love, and love came back in another way. So I wanted to talk about this, and somehow I managed to write it. Sounds very complicated, and it sort of is. And I wrote the lyric first, and it's AABA. And I wrote it with a wonderful songwriter, Michelle Browerman, who's very famous actually in the cabaret world. She writes songs and plays with a woman named Amanda McBroom, who wrote The Rose, which a famous song for Bette Midler, was a big hit. And Amanda's written some beautiful songs that Michael Feinstein has done. She did a wonderful song called My Favorite Year. So I've known Michelle Browerman for 40 years. She played for me at the Songwriter Showcase with Len Chandler and John Brahaney And I've always liked her. And I gave her this lyric. I've worked with Amanda. She's a true talent, lovely woman. Yes, she sure is, Sylvia. She's just great. And she was a taskmaster because I will admit something to you guys. I did not have my scansion working on this song. So the scansion is the length and the rhythm and the stresses of the lines. So I had A, and my second A didn't quite match my first A. So she busted my butt on that. And good for her. And then she didn't like my bridge lyric. And I had to come up with I rewrote the bridge lyric. And we talked about it. And she was tough. But let's hear it.
Let's hear it. This is In Another Way.
I've lost you now. I never thought you'd be a lovely memory that I think of now and then, a snapshot faded by the light of day. But love is never lost. It just comes back in another way. And yes, it's strange. Now that I've lost you, I guess I've changed. Would you even like me now? Or know me as your love from yesterday? But love is never lost. It just comes back in another way. We said everything we had to say. Without a doubt, you loved me so. But when it ended and you went away, I kissed you and I let you go. It's not the same, but when we touch I feel the fire's flame, safely locked inside their arms. For now I know I'll be okay, though changes have their cost. Love is never lost. It just comes back in another way. The things we love the most we lose, but if we survive the pain, in the end, love will come back in another way.
That's just astonishing, Mark.
Thank you.
It's such a beautiful song, and honestly, one of the most moving vocals of yours that I've heard in your extensive catalog. And it's, sometimes when the subject matter of a song is very personal, sometimes that's the hardest time to be able to bring emotion to it, and it feels so honest and so vulnerable, and so empowered, so filled with love and loving, and I've got the head to toe shivers,
Oh, thank you.
and I've heard it many times, but not having had you set it up for us like that, that was just really really
Uh,
lovely.
Thank you. And, I want to, first of all, thank you for all the people who were chatting and saying nice things. I appreciate it. But I believe we as songwriters have to write the stuff that moves us, that is at our very core. And it can be fun. I mean, I love Studebakers, so which are these old cars from the 40s and 50s. And I wrote an impassioned song about it. It's never made it on an album yet. But whatever we truly feel and mean the most to us, that's what we've got to write about. I never want to work with a songwriter who gives me a lyric and I go, well, what do you feel about this? And they go, oh, I don't care. No, 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 no. I want you to care very much about it. When we listen to the greats, whoever they may be, whether it's Willie Nelson or Taylor Swift or Antonio Carlos Jobim, we know or Bruce Springsteen, we know with every fiber of their being, they believe in that song. That song, if they didn't write that song, they wouldn't have been able to wake up in the morning. And that's why I'm a songwriter, because it keeps me sane, So so that's a great thing. So all of the craft that I can teach you, and I do teach you, and Rob can teach you in his roots class and all of the wonderful classes at school, we need that. But you've got to use that craft to tell us the stories that only you can tell. And I'm looking at a couple of people right now, and they've got incredible stories to tell. And I'm very proud to work with them and help them tell these stories. So that's what it's all about.
And you do that so well. And I'm going to share something that a lot of your students know about you, but might not know this particular story. So 6 years ago, when Richard passed, it was right before you had a class here in this building, and you shared that hard news with me. And the first thing I said was, well, don't come in. And you said, no, where I want to be is with songwriters and songs, and that vulnerability and strength and presence and trying to go where things matter and make what matters is it's a hallmark of your music, and it's a hallmark of the teaching that you do, and your students know that. But I wanted to
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
a really special song.
So when I was listening to the song, I want to say that Michelle is such a wonderful writer, because every note in that song has its place. There's nothing paraphrased, there's nothing fibbed where you go, no, that note should go there. Every note is where it's supposed to be. And I love that in melody writers, that it's not like it could be this note or it could be that note. Especially the note on, I just made a note, I wrote it. Love is never lost. It just comes back. The note she puts the word back on is so fantastic. It's slightly dissonant, and it's great. And she's got that level of craft. She works so hard on these melodies, and I really respect that.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, one of the things about a collection of a jazz record is that, like you mentioned before, it's got to cover some different ground. So
Right.
let's talk about a song that evokes and invokes some different traditions. I'm thinking of Bossa Nova Days.
Sure. So Bossa Nova Days is interesting in a lot of ways. I came up with the first verse, I dreamt it. Did you know that, Rob? I dreamt.
No,
So, Paul McCartney dreamed the melody to Yesterday, and he called it Scrambled Eggs.
Scrambled Eggs.
So the title of the song in my dream was Bossa Nova World. And when I woke up, I wrote down the verse and I put Bossa Nova World on. Oh, Bossa Nova Days is better. And I had most of the verse in the dream. So I never did that before. And once again, it's another world, and it's the world of Bossa Nova, Brazil, Antonio Carlos Jobim, And I love that I love that music. And what else do I have to say about this song? Oh, I'm not myself in this song. I'm playing a character. I'm a little bit like myself, but my first lines are, I wasn't born for these times. Music's not musical and words don't even rhyme. Well, I don't really believe that, but I know people, especially of my generation, who think that. And so I was playing that character. And I love to play characters. I don't think enough of it is done in songs. You don't always have to be yourself with your own personal views. You can be somebody else in your song. And I like to play other people in my songs sometimes. And I got that from one of my favorite songwriters, Randy Newman, who always gets in trouble because he's always playing rednecks and stupid people and slave captains in his songs, and people think that it's him. But he's not. He's playing a character. So let's hear it. And this is my new world premiere video. I just had that lyric video.
Here we go.
I wasn't born for these times. Music's not musical, and words don't even rhyme. I hear a different sound. It's coming from the street, like I'm there in Ipanema, in the sweet and sultry heat. Lost in those bossa nova days. Lost in those bossa nova days. Like Joao Gilberto in his prime, backed by a warm guitar, his voice the sweetest wine, singing of lost romance. Sand beneath my feet, like I'm there in Ipanema, and my heart has learned to speak. Lost in those bossa nova days. Lost in those bossa nova days. Take me back, a cafe, 59. The drummer playing brushes, and the shakers keeping time. And I'm singing Desafinado, with someone on my mind. Take me back. Take me back.
Let's call it on this. Rob? Yeah, good. I think we get it.
Well, I think we were all very relaxed just then. That was great.
Yeah, it's like you want
Phrasing
to
is
have a
okay.
mojito or something. What is the drink in Brazil?
Your phrasing is so nice and back against that, and it's it's markedly different than when you're the kind of the hipster up towards the front of the beat. It was really cool.
Oh, thank you. Caparina. What is it, Roger? Unmute thyself and tell me what the name of the drink is.
And we'll meet you for them there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's caipirinha. It's cachaça, which is the Brazilian spirit with lime and sugar.
Okay, which reminds me, thank you, Roger. I changed the line in this song. It was backed by his wise guitar, cachaça mixed with lime. And I had a hard time singing it. His voice, the sweetest wine, sings a lot better than cachaça mixed with. Cachaça is like a lot of S's, you know. So, but my engineer liked the line cachaça mixed with lime better. We thought about it. So I don't. It's an AABA song. I'm playing a character and lots of furniture, specific nouns and verbs in the song.
When you're writing something like this, are you drawing on memories? Are you in the movies, in the books? Are you on your Wikipedia page? How are you getting the furniture?
I didn't have to get the furniture from a Wikipedia page on this. Bill, who wrote the music for it, is an expert, literally a scholar on bossa nova, and he works with Sergio Mendes. So, who's a famous Brazilian, a Brazil 66. So he's very particular. So I think he's the one who came up with joie, he told me how to say it, João Gilberto. I believe everything else I sort of knew. And I knew Desafinato and all that, the song. And
Right.
I really love Brazilian music. So I didn't need to go to the Wikipedia, but I do go to Wikipedia. Sure. I'll do whatever it takes. Let's move on.
That sounds great. How about, do you have a pick that you'd like to do next?
Yeah, let's do Before You Leave.
Okay, wonderful.
Because we've got a fun little thing. I'm going to see if I can do this correctly. Oh, how do I do this? You can still see me, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an interesting story. I wrote this song with a wonderful writer, Shelley Nyman. Is she on tonight? I don't think so. Shelley, are you on? If you're on, say hi. Well, anyway, I wrote this lyric originally for another song, which I'm going to play a little of right now. And the other song is written by a wonderful keyboardist named Josh Nelson, who's an LA-based keyboard player, just a great keyboard player, great melody writer. And he gave me this melody. And Shelley and I came up with this lyric called Before You Leave. And what happened? Oh, and I'll play a Barbara welcome. Oh, good. So Barbara's here. We'll do her song next. He gave me this rough demo, and we came up with a little of this lyric, and I'll sing it. Okay, let me play this. Before you leave, before you go and catch your flight, before you leave, if you would stay just one more night, maybe I'll find the right words, not old excuses that you've heard. You'll believe me 'cause I'll speak from my heart and my soul. That's enough, huh? Okay. Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Cool.
that was great.
Okay, we did it. So for some reason, I thought he wrote this song. It's called Duke and Billy, the instrumental, and it evokes Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn. And for some reason, I thought there was sort of a nostalgic element to it that our lyric didn't have. So I took our lyric away and I wrote another lyric to it called Vintage, which still hasn't been recorded. But I was talking with John Mayer, who's a wonderful 50s bebop piano player who plays with me sometimes, really great guy. And I showed him the lyric, and he wrote a new melody to my lyric with Shelley. And that's what's on the record. And we brought John into the studio to do this particular song. And he's just a wonderful player. So let's just hear some of this. And if Barbara, you have any comments about it before we play it, if you want to. chime in? My producer, Barbara Brighton, is here, so.
Hi there. This is actually one of my favorite songs on the album. I just love this song.
Were you shocked to hear the other melody? Did you even know I did that?
I did not know that. I didn't know Josh wrote that melody, and I know. I'd like to hear the lyrics you put to that melody.
You heard it because Mon David sings it. So he did Vintage with Josh, and you were there, remember? And you liked it. Yeah, it's nice. Okay, let's hear the song.
Yeah.
Before you leave.
Yeah.
Before you leave, before you say the word goodbye, just one more chance to make things right. Please let me try. Maybe we'll both remember the way that we felt before. Maybe we'll find the magic before you walk out the door. Before you leave, before you go and catch your flight, before the dawn, if you would stay just one more night, maybe we'll both discover that sometimes a love survives. Before this night is over, back in your arms, just love me one more time, darling, before you leave.
Okay, I think we've heard John's beautiful solo, so that's... So that song is written in the Great American Songbook style of the great old ballad like The More I See You, or a million songs that were written during the 30s and 40s and 50s. So it's got that form, the AABA, so that's what I was trying to do there. And the other thing I want to say is everybody that I write with has their own style and own little picadillos. And John is very particular about each note, and he drove me crazy. Can you put up the lyric?
Yes.
So one of the things that I changed is his melody didn't fit the second half of the A. So no, actually the B. It didn't fit the B. So he wrote a new B melody, and I had to change the lyric to fit his B melody, bridge melody, and we went over and over, and for the lines, maybe we'll find the magic before you walk out the door. Well, I can't tell you that went on for about 2 weeks. Every time we got together it was a different melody. So finally I said, John, it's fine. This melody is just great. So he grew to like it. So, I would rather somebody was very particular about the melody and making sure it was right than somebody just tossing it off. So do you have anything to add, Barbara?
Well, no, I
Okay.
think I do.
Okay, well, let's move on to the song that Barbara and I had our little back and forth with,
That's
Marlena's Memory. What?
I said that's putting it nicely.
Yeah, well, I'm trying. We don't want to. Barbara and I are much better than we were in our early days. We were very volatile, but as I say, I was very volatile.
Oh,
Yeah. But I learned after 8 albums that Barbara is always right.
thank you, Mark.
No, but you don't have to thank me. I just learned it. And so let me start with Marlena's Memories by saying that every single word in the song is true. And one of the things that I've been going through as a guy of a certain age is one of my best friends has Alzheimer's. She's someone that I've known for 36 years, and we go to movies together, and we were political junkies together. And she was an actress in New York, off Broadway. She did a lot of experimental theater. She was with the La Mama Theater Company. She was really an incredible person. And about 11 years ago, she started exhibiting signs of Alzheimer's. And it's been a long journey. And she never got married, never had any kids. And I'm now her power of attorney. And I'm one of the 2 people that visit her, maybe 3 people, but I'm there for her. And it's been great and terrible and illuminating and frustrating. And I wanted to write about it. And the one thing that we can meet at is in her memories. When we talk about what's happening right now, she gets frustrated, or she gets a little mind worm and she gets stuck on something. But if we talk about the past, we can talk. And I know all about her childhood. And I could answer a quiz on Marlena, and I'd get I know her mother's name, Ava. I know her father's name, Bud. No, her brother's name is Bud. So I wanted to write a song about it. And I rewrote it quite a bit. And I remember I sent you different versions of it, Barbara, and I know you had comments. And it was even longer. It's pretty long, this song. It's the longest song on the record. The thing that was great so when we recorded the song, 2 things happened. We recorded 5 songs a day, the tracks, with everybody playing at once. The horn, the trumpet. So on this song, it was in the middle of the session, and we had just done When All the Lights in the Sign Worked, which was just magic. It was just an incredible session. Remember, it was so great, Barbara. And then we did Late Bloomin Jazzman, which just was fantastic. And we were on a high. And then we had to do this song about my friend who's got Alzheimer's. And I think everybody sort of went, oh God, I got to do this song. And it suffered from that. And when we listened to it after the session, Barbara and I, when we both took the basic tracks with my scratch vocals on them, we both decided to drop the song. So Barbara said, I don't think it's working. And I said, I think you're right. And then about a week later, I listened to it. And I realized that we cut the song too slow, that I had made a demo version of it. And it was way slower than the demo. And I thought, oh, if we can speed up the song, the track, which I know we could do, because I'd done that before, we slowed down a song on one of my albums, that maybe we could save it. And the trumpet player, who was fantastic on everything, Brian Schwartz, he was tired, I think. I don't know. It wasn't he didn't catch it exactly. So we put a new trumpet on it, the guy who had done the demo of the song with me. So he sort of knew the song better, Nolan Shahid. And it wound up on the record, and it almost got dropped again because we were having a hell of a time mixing it. And then my vocal was all wrong. And Barbara came through and she told me not to sing. She said, "You're singing. Don't sing this song." And that was great advice. And I just basically told the story. And it really helped. So let's hear it.
The difference.
She doesn't even have a room, just a bed and a place to hold her things. And if we talk too much about today, she fades away. Her bed is closest to the hall. She can hear the nurses with their trays. And if we talk about the daily news, she gets confused about the news.
I was always changing the lyrics, so some of these lyrics aren't quite right.
But then she starts talking about her dad, the bar he owned, and his restaurant down the block. And she smiles and she says the burgers were the best, and how she loved this cook named Cookie, who was kind. Every detail she remembers so clearly in her mind, 'cause that's where she lives, in her memories. Marlena's memories, Marlena's memories. She loves to paint her fingernails while she watches tennis on TV. But if I ask who won the latest round, she looks around.
She looks around as much better than she can be found, by the way.
She still can call me by my name, though I know that soon it won't be so. So for now we laugh like it's a game. It's no game. But then she starts talking about her mom, the nicest woman who ever lived. And she says how her brother Bud was supposed to drive her to the train, but drove her all the way to college in the rain. Every detail she remembers, no need to explain, 'cause that's where she lives, in her memories, Marlena's memories, Marlena's memories.
I want to say it's a verse chorus song, and it's got lots of furniture, specific nouns and verbs, and it means a lot to me. And once again, it's like in another way, it's like I had to write this song. And the funny thing is, and Barbara knows that, is it's getting great reviews, this song. And this big jazz station in Orlando is all over this song. So the first song I've heard played on the radio from my album is this song.
Which is real. It's funny. I thought,
I never thought they'd play this on the radio.
I didn't think it would get any traction at all, because it's, it's just not something that is typical in terms of what jazz radio plays. But the reviews are all mentioning this song. So, we were pleasantly surprised.
And I was talking earlier, Barbara, about gatekeepers, people that I need in my life to tell me if the stuff is good or not. And you're one of my big gatekeepers. And I had to go with my gut on this one.
Yeah.
And I just, it was in, out, at least 3 times. So I'm glad it has a happy ending.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
So
Yeah.
that's that. Rob, any thoughts? Any?
Well, I just want to say congratulations, Barbara, on producing another wonderful record. And
Oh, thank you, Rob. Thank you so much.
well, before we get you out of the hot seat here, say one thing about why you enjoy working with him as an artist. That's not the obvious stuff that he's so charming. And what is it about this relationship
Well,
professionally that you
we
enjoy?
we've been very close friends for 25 years now, I think, right? And so we're kind of like sometimes like brother and sister, and we
We are like brother and sister, really.
we are. And so we, sometimes we spat and we whatever. But the thing that I love about working with Mark is that he brings so much creativity to the game, and we can really collaborate. We listen to each other and we respect each other. We care about each other's feelings and all of this. And it just, we bring a lot of love into the studio. And I think it comes through in the records. We both, a long time ago, decided we're not working with anybody we don't really like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're great musicians, but if they're jerky, we don't have them. So on all our projects, it's just, there's so much wonderful camaraderie and it's just a joy, really. Even if we have some disagreements, we always hash it out, and it's just great to have a chance to work with somebody that you love and care about and respect, and so I guess that's
That's marvelous, and you're absolutely right. It absolutely comes through. There's no doubt about it. Well, cheers to you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say about Barbara is I've worked with other producers, and a couple of them crazy, out of their mind producers, a couple. But Barbara has incredible musicality. She knows the notes, I should be singing. She knows the rhythms I should be singing. But she also is very attuned to how everything sounds. She loves mixing. I hate it. I love it when I'm producing on my other people. But when she's mixing me, the songs of me, I hate it, So she loves that, and she completes me, and she's just great. So I feel like I'm a very lucky guy.
Oh, thank you. You made my evening.
Oh, good. Well, stick around. So we're gonna do Old Enough now, right?
Yes. Yeah. One of the topics that you mentioned that's important to you, but that your record addresses is age and ageism, and this record is living proof that we're never too old to bloom. But talk about this song. It's a different spin on that conversation.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about getting older is you look back on your youth and you realize how stupid you were. And I remember when I was 24, I was working as a waiter in Beverly Hills at the chopping block. It was like being aboard the Titanic. It didn't last, but they had a little bar area where bands could play. And on a Monday night, it was Monday nights the bands would play. And one Monday night they had my band play, and I was singing this wonderful Billie Holiday song, God Bless the Child. And I was smart enough to know at 24 that I didn't know what this song was about. I just hadn't lived enough to know what this song was about. And many songs when I was 24, I just didn't know what they were about. I hadn't lived them. And I remember thinking that when I was singing the song. And that sort of opens up, it's actually the second verse of the tune. But one of the nice things about getting older is I know whatever all the songs are about now, because most of it's happened to me in one way or the other. So age does have its benefits.
Brilliant. All right, this is Old Enough.
I used to sing sad songs with a smile on my face, not really knowing what I was singing. I used to sing too high, too loud, too right, totally missing the meaning.
Oh yeah, it's in this verse.
I remember being 20 on a bandstand with my group singing, God bless the child. Wondering what was Billy thinking. Now I know what she was thinking, 'cause I'm old enough to know what all the wise songs were saying. I'm old enough to know all the chords the masters were playing. And I'm old enough not to be fooled by the lights and the show, but I'm still young enough to know I don't know all that much, don't you know? I used to write bad songs.
I did, lots of them.
Back in the good old days, thinking I was clever and witty. I used to write too much too soon, I'd croon my tales like a fool in the city. And I remember being 30 and having my fool heart broken, listening to Only the Lonely, knowing my cliches had gotten it wrong. So this time the clever is gone. To know what all the wise songs were saying. Yeah, I'm old enough to know all the chords the masters were playing. And I'm old enough not to be fooled by the lights and the show, but I'm still young enough to know I don't know all that much, don't you know? Too many notes and too little feeling, not knowing myself and guilty of stealing somebody's style away instead of claiming my own. I know that much, I guess, and that much more is less. Definitely less.
All right.
You know what, I got to say, Mark, over the years, before you talk about the song, so many times when I've introduced you for a workshop, I ask a question about sort of, how did you come to a sense of your voice and your style? And you've basically written the song that encapsulates the journey. And I think that's pretty marvelous.
Yeah, when students ask me how are they going to know what they write, what kind of song they should write, I go, just write a lot of songs. And there's going to be a moment when you're going to write a song and you're going to say, oh, that's what I do. That's my voice. And I had a moment, it was my first album. I had been a songwriter. I had my first song recorded in 1977. And I was writing songs for different acts like Stephanie Mills, R&B acts, LTD, and they were fairly generic. And then all of a sudden, I started writing this concept of mine called jazz life. And it was using jazz as a metaphor for life. And the minute I started writing those three songs that started the record, I knew I had touched something. It sounded like nobody else was me. And that was a great moment. I remember that, being at the piano. But it took writing a lot of songs to get to that moment.
Well, I love that there's so much heart in a song that's funny too, and you can.
I love funny songs.
Yeah, well, and you let yourself be the sort of the brunt of the joke in hindsight because you've got the punchline now. I think it's pretty marvelous.
Oh, good. And I just wanted, that's a verse chorus song. And there's more double rhymes in that song than generally. So feeling and stealing and pretty good. And I didn't use city and what was it? Pretty. I didn't use the double rhyme, the bad one. Okay.
The poopy one.
Yeah, the poopy one.
Yeah.
So we're I forgot where we're at, Rob. I know we're on the last song. Were we going to do something before the last song, or?
Well, I think, it would be nice maybe to, if anybody wants to ask a question of you, maybe this would be really nice, and then we
Yeah.
can do the last song and
Sure.
close it out tonight. But this has been a really wonderful conversation. But does anybody have a question about? It could be about the craft. It could be about the making of the record, or the making of a record, or anything like that.
How to
I have
make?
a question.
Sure, Lydia.
I want to know if you record all your songs live or if you record vocals and instrumental separately or how you do.
Good question. So when we do the I record the whole album, the instrumentals, the track, we track it 2 days generally, 5 songs a day, and during that everything's isolated. So if we want to replace something, we can do it. So the studio I go to, Tritone, has a drum booth, a bass booth, a vocal booth, and then if we have a trumpet player or sax player, he's in the studio. So everything's isolated, and I'm doing scratch vocals while the musicians are doing the track. The priority is making sure we get the track right. So I never stop something if my vocal's wrong, as long as the guys are doing it cool. But a lot of times we use a lot of my scratch vocals, but I record scratch vocals, and then after the tracks are done, I go in and I record new vocals where it needs to be done. And never record. Barbara, do you have anything to add about that? Oh,
We muted you, Mark.
unmute thyself.
Unmute yourself. Sorry.
So while
There we
she's
go. Okay.
good.
What I was going to say is that my preference is to do it with all the musicians there. It creates a different vibe. It's very live. And so when we, some people don't like to do that. They have everybody come in separately and do,
I
the
hate
trumpet
that.
track but that's not the way I like to do it. And that's not the way Mark likes to do it. We like to have everybody there. It just creates a different environment and a sound that is preferable.
So every time you guys are in the room together, but you record separately, that's what you're saying?
We're in isolation booths.
Yeah, they're just in booths, but
But we can
everybody
see each other.
at the same
Oh, okay. So you
Yeah.
always together. You always, when you play, but in different booth, and you can get different points of recording.
Yeah,
That's what you're saying?
yeah.
So you can edit each instrument.
Right.
Yeah, if we need be, but the musicians that we work with are so good, we really don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lydia. Karen says, would you tell us a little about pre-production? What do you think is the most important thing? Barbara, what do you think is the most important thing in pre-production?
Well, that's a big question. There's so much that we do. I mean, first of all, just picking the music, and also, going over the arrangements with, in this case, Jameson, going over the arrangements and making sure that the arrangements are what we want, and working on the vocals too, just talking about phrasing and talking about, what you're trying to convey in the song. And, and then that way, when we go into the studio, we know exactly where we're at. So we don't waste a lot of time in the studio, although, it's inevitable that things are going to change from time to time, but at least we go into the studio and we have a pretty good idea of, how we want things to sound. So
Yeah, we have a really good idea. I don't like a lot of surprises. Like, we know what arrangements we want.
yeah.
We very rarely veer that far away from the arrangement.
Yeah.
We have it down, and we did a rehearsal with the guys before we went in the tracking dates. We actually met and we went through the songs, And
Mhm.
so we ironed out some of the kinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And the most important thing is getting the right songs that fit my style. And Barbara is great at keeping me in the jazz lane, because I tend to veer off into other lanes. And Barbara goes, no, you can't do that. She does, which is great, because it's a business, and I'm doing better in the business. I'm getting more well known, and it's in the jazz world, and I'm not going to be a pop singer. So it's good. Any more questions?
Well, Mark, I have a question. So basically, when did you start this whole thing? Like, how long did this album take you?
The writing of it took the previous two albums, Nawa. I didn't have a lot of original songs in them. So I wrote these songs over maybe a 2 to 3 year period, because the other two albums that I recorded, the one with David Benoit and the one with it was the David Benoit and the Bobby Troop album, I wasn't doing my own songs except for a couple. I had these songs over 2 and 3 years. I'd written them, and I had about 18. And then we had to pick the ones that were right. And the whole process, once we picked the songs, it was pretty quick, right? We started the beginning of summer, and I think we ended like the beginning of November.
Very quick. Yeah.
Yeah, couple of months, 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay. As uniquely, how did others like Mark Murphy and Bobby Troop? Well, you're picking my two major influences. Mark Murphy, who's a wonderful jazz singer who's no longer with us, and Bobby Troop. I've done 2 Bobby Troop albums. He was a white guy who swung and wrote his own songs, so I feel like he's a kindred spirit. And he also didn't have a very big voice. I actually have a bigger voice than Bobby Troop, but I do a lot of talk singing, where I'm like very conversational, swinging it. And I got that from Bobby Troop. And from Mark Murphy, I got, he risked being emotional, and he risked singing and not sounding pretty all the time. And he was a very jazzy guy. So from those two people, I sort of got a lot of my identity. But I'm going to also throw out a name that was very influential to me, and that's Barbara Streisand. I'm a gigantic Barbara Streisand fan. And a lot of things about singing I learned. Being truthful, varying my vocal technique, singing softly, singing loudly. Those are the 3 people, and Al Jarreau. I love Al Jarreau. So anyway, good question.
Really good questions.
Let's do the last song.
Let's do that. And I was just going to say, one of the things that you and Barbara were discussing is the song selection. And one of the things that you were talking about before is, especially in the jazz world, the currency that cover songs have. And so on some level, you have to be able to see yourself alongside of these luminaries, because your songs are ultimately going to sit alongside them in collections like yours. And I love that we are coming to the song that we're coming to, because it's an original song, but it's also a song that's in conversation with a hero, and manages to round up some of the larger themes that are interesting to you and deals with them in the song. Would you talk a little bit about that bigger picture thing, and then this song in particular?
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about jazz is it builds upon the giants of the past, that we as jazz musicians stand on their shoulders. So Bob Roth, who's Bobby Troop's biographer, he's writing a biography on Bobby Troop. I stand on his shoulders. I love the way he wrote lyrics. He wrote very clever, funny, poignant lyrics. And so jazz is very much about the whole history of jazz. And we as pop songwriters, we have an incredible history to draw from. And, we have Prince and Joni Mitchell and Carole King and Bruno Mars and all these, Little Richard. And I love, when I teach my master's class and when I teach my songwriting class, I love involving the students and exposing them to all these different people. And my favorite songwriter, one of my favorite songwriters outside of Bobby Troup, and a wonderful lesser known songwriter, Laura Nero, is George Gershwin. I think he's just amazing. I mean, I love his songs. And George Gershwin was a rebel in his time because he fused things together. So he would write concertos, and he would write pop songs, and he'd write operas, and he'd take the jazz of the day and he'd put it into pop songs. He syncopated. I got rhythm. And a lot of his songs took the music of jazz and made it into pop music. And some critics hated him. They didn't like him fusing these elements together. But I love George Gershwin. And he died as a very young man. He died at 37 years old. And I started musing, what if he'd lived, what would he have written? He was a young guy. He had another 20, 25 years of writing songs. So that's what started this song. So are we going to play the song, or are we going to play how are we going to do this, Rob?
What makes it? Do you want to play the video first, and then the studio recording?
Yeah. So I wrote this song with a wonderful writer named David Lucky, and who writes sort of Randy Newman-ish melodies, and he writes some great funny songs on his own. But I gave him this song because I thought he'd catch the nostalgic elements of it. And when I went to arrange it with my arranger of the song, Rich Eames, who's basically my chief piano player, we went down a path that probably we shouldn't have gone down. And that is, we went more cabaret with it than jazz. So I did a live recording of it when we were going down our cabaret path. And let's play it.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, so it's a phone recording, which is super fun behind the scenes.
And sometimes I get thinking about the things he left undone, and I sure would have loved one more tune. Just sitting at his baby grand, magic in his hands. If only Gershwin had lived. Oh, it wasn't meant to be. You can't take that away from me. The fact that Gershwin had lived. Thank you. Rich Eames did that arrangement.
Which we didn't use. So we did about 6 Gershwin tunes in the middle, that instrumental section. And the rhythm was, and the chords backing me up weren't jazzy. They were more cabaret-ish, which is another style of music, which has things in common with jazz. So I played it for Barbara, and it bugged her. And I noticed that it got a good reaction when I played it live doing this, but it didn't get a great reaction. And then I sang it in New York, and I got not even as good a reaction as this one. So I thought, well, maybe we can change it. And Barbara and I discussed it. And then I met with Rich and we rearranged it. And that's what's on the album. Anything you could add, Barbara?
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. I thought it was kind of corny, and I kind of envisioned it to be more of a kind of to give it a more Bill Evans feel, and to, you know, put some different voicings in the chords that would be more, you know, a little more out and a little just more jazz stuff. It was kind of very major, and I kind of wanted it to have a little more of a minor feel. And talked to Rich about it, and we worked on it, and even in the studio a little bit. I'm going, no more, go out a little more, and it you know. So I was pleased with how it came out.
Yeah, it's really nice. I just want to answer Christine. Initial drafts of songs can require a lot of rewriting and reworking. You know, rewriting is what I do, was what us writers do. And I want it to be the best song. And I always go for the best idea. And it doesn't have to be my idea. And that's really important, that not always what we think is the best idea. And that's why you have to keep yourself open. And it's not easy. I'm not always so great at it, but I've learned through the years that it's worth it. So let's hear it. Let's not play the whole thing, but at least up to the instrumental or something.
If Gershwin had lived, think of the songs he'd have written by now. The world would be better somehow. Think of the treasures he'd have found, just sitting at his baby grand, the notes beneath his hands. If only Gershwin had lived. If Gershwin had lived,
nice chord right there.
There'd be music destined to last. Songs and concertos and jazz, and operas like Porgy and Bess. I guess I'm just a dreamer who's dreaming of what might have been. If only Gershwin had lived. Now he wrote a lot of great songs, and I'm grateful for that. But his star burned out much too soon. And sometimes I get to thinking about the things he left undone, and I sure would have loved one more tune.
Okay. You did a beautiful solo. Once again, check it out on Spotify. So
yeah.
So it came out really nice, and it's much more subtle and jazzier, which I'm a jazz singer, so it should be jazzier.
Well, and the poignancy of the sentiment comes across, and
Right.
that was Barbara. You were fighting either it's got to feel honest or it shouldn't be here if it's like a trick pony kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that we just went down the wrong path, but it was fun. I have other songs. We had another song on the album, actually, which is a cover tune, and we cut it in the original sessions, and it just didn't work. It just wasn't working. It wasn't grooving like I wanted it to. And we recut it. We put a new arrangement on it, and we recut it. And that, Don't Be Blue. So sometimes you have to redo it. It's not working.
Mm-hmm.
So
Life
Well,
itself.
what, Barbara? That's like life, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Rob, we're at the end of this.
I think we're at the end of this, and I want to first, before we thank Mark Winkler, I want to thank you all for being here. But Mark,
Yeah.
you said something that I found really moving when you were setting the song up, and you were talking about all the shoulders of the songwriters that you have stood upon, and one of the things that I know that you do in your class that you mentioned that you're always trying to expose your students to all the people that you believe they should know because they're a part of a larger community. What are you saying right now to us songwriters who want to understand, is there room for us there? Is there a need for our voices? How do we fit into this community of songwriters that you find yourself in?
Well, of course you fit into it. Each of us, I'm always amazed every time I teach a class. I'm amazed at the talent and the amount of stories that everybody has. And I think don't try to write like Taylor Swift. Don't try to use their craft, but find your own voice. Write about what you know about, because only you will know the specific details to your story, but stand on the shoulders of the giants. And I will play you the giants and the people, at least the ones I know. I don't know all of them. And the other thing I want to say is I do an assignment where I have you write a song in the style that's not what you think of as yours. Because what I've discovered through the years is sometimes we put ourselves into a little category, and we really are much bigger than that. So I had a student who actually has done very well. Her name's Angela Parrish. She sang great writer, and she was one of the voices in La La Land. And she came to me wanting to be Blossom Dearie or Diana Krall, a female jazz singer. And I introduced her to some country western, one particular writer, Townes Van Zandt. And I had her write a song in his style. And she became an Americana artist. She discovered her voice. So when you're starting out, when you're a young writer, try different styles. Sometimes you have a talent for something you didn't even know. And always, even as me as a mature writer, right now I'm writing a sort of a folky country song with this guy. And I love doing it because I get to play another character in my personality, I love rock music. I love country western music. I love pop. I always have loved pop music. I love folk music. So I'm a jazz singer and I love jazz songs, but I think it's always good for us to look outside of ourselves.
Well, in this community of songwriters, I want to say personally how grateful I am to have you in our specific community of the Songwriting School, teaching the classes that you've done, this master's workshop, the song feedback, the commercial lyrics class that you'll do again this summer. And I appreciate that you are the reason that this gathering of songwriters is here tonight. Would you guys please unmute and thank and congratulate Mark Winkler on this fantastic record. Yay.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. This has been great. I've been wanting to do something like this. Rob and I were going to do this for the last record, but this is the right record to do it with.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. So, Mark, you're going to play us out, but thank you all so much for being here. And Mark, congratulations on this beautiful record. It deserves
Thank you,
all.
Rob. And I appreciate so much your integrity. Your school has so much integrity, and your heart is in the right place. And you teach, I know because I get some of your students, you teach them to have the craft, but have the heart, have the mind, but have the heart. So thank you.
Well, may we always. Thank you guys so much for being here. And again, I'm so proud of you, Mark, and so happy for you. Well done.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks.
Love all of you. So many of you I know. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Don't they?
Good night,
While
guys.
the world shoves aside the particular hipsters who play, who've paid their dues and lived a little bit long away. But watching you tonight, I know the world is wrong. So wrong. 'Cause you're playing stronger, the longer in the tooth, the notes you conveying are the stone cold honest truth. You're playing better than in your well-regarded youth. You're a late bloomin' jazz man, late bloomin' jazz man. And one thing's very clear, your finest flowers finally here.
Good night, you guys.
Good night.